ragazzi, vediamo come va.
Come lo vuoi chiamare? Che titolo li vogliamo mettere?
From basic volumes to li chiamiamo posing the figures with basic volumes.
Ok, senti, poi perfetto, si vede benissimo, si vede in orizzontale, addirittura secondo me lo puoi avvicinare un po' perché no, va bene,
No,
perché
bene,
lateralmente ci sono due spazi, no?
Sì,
Lateralmente,
sì.
però insomma va bene.
Sì.
Al momento si vede fino all'anello del...
Sì, va bene così. Sì, da qui,
okay.
quello che vedo, da qui, quello che vedo, tutto quello che vedo, così c'ho tutta la cosa. Adesso
perfetto, mi scrivi per favore su WhatsApp il titolo così io lo modifico?
Sì.
Tanto nel frattempo aspettiamo che
ecco due, ce ne sono
arrivi
due.
qualche ospite, uno
Sì,
sono io ovviamente.
Sì, ma sono due, uno sei te.
Uno sono io.
Adesso devo mettere giù per farlo, sai, non riesco a farlo da con
ok, tanto ti scrivo.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna start in a few minutes, guys, right? So I wanted to do. So welcome everybody, guys. Welcome. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to show you how to block basic volumes in various poses using stereometric volumes, and from there move on a little bit to slightly more organic forms, right? So we're going to try to do this from imagination, right? Let's start blocking in maybe at first. You can draw with me, you can watch it later, draw later, but so blocking the line of action, right? I'm gonna block in my figure along this line like this, right? And then, so we're gonna have the rib cage here, the pelvis here, and the leg going out this way, right? Not a leg this way. So this is just to visualize the sense of movement, right? All right, so now that I kind of can imagine how all the various parts of the body connect, we start blocking in the segment of the body. So this is going to be the rib cage. We're going to draw a female, right? Female pose, right? And this is the rib cage, right? This is the pelvis. I'm going to block in these segments intuitively, right? Without measuring them, just to see, just to visualize them, how they could come together, right? Once I have decided the pose or how this segment could be aligned, then maybe I measure to see if all the parts are proportionally correct in relation to each other. So at this stage here, I can also change my mind, right? So instead of having the head forward like this, I could have the head turn this way, like that, right? So that would kind of continue the arched pose, right? Now, in the typical proportion of the body, this is how the various segments relate to each other proportionally, right? So the head is 1, right? The rib cage is a little bit more than 1.5, or between here and here, between the chin and the top of the pelvis is 2. This is 1, the thigh is 2, and then the leg and the foot is also 2. Now, these are all facing straight me like this, so I can rely on these poses, these measurements. So let's block in now. Let's check if they are properly related to each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, so they kind of look correct, right? So let's block these now a little bit more accurately. And I'll clean it up, then look at the faint mark that I made, and then use them as a trace. But I can also edit them, change them, right, as I proceed. For example, I'm going to turn this head a little bit more out this way, right? So head this way, ribcage this way, pelvis this way. So I have this turning of the segment in different direction to increase the dynamism, right? Drawing the center line helps to establish the direction of the segment. Actually, I'm going to move this a little bit more, rotate this a little bit more to the left, right? See the center line. So here, here, and here, right? Now, once I blocked in these, I want to think now, it's a woman, so I need to make the rib cage narrower than the pelvis, right? That's how the volumes of rib cage and pelvis relate to each other, right? Rib cage in women tends to be narrower than in men, right? So find the sternum, right? So this in the rib, once you establish the rib cage, you can divide the rib cage in two halves, where the length of the sternum is a little bit longer than the height of the costal arch, right? So now from here, I'm gonna make the pelvis, right, slightly wider, right, than the rib cage. And then I draw this as a marshmallow, right? I want just this to be just one head in height, so that's good. And then I find the iliac spine. Actually they're a little bit lower than that. Once I find the top of the pelvis, right, I would divide this height in 4 segments here. At the lower quarter, I have the, so I'm gonna move it a little bit to the left. At the lower quarter, I'm going to have the pubic bone. At the upper quarter here, I have the iliac spine here, right? So here. And then in between the pubic bone and the iliac spine here, I have the joint. So here, I'm going to position the leg, the thigh, right? So the thigh is gonna go this way, this thigh is gonna go that way, right? And I can even move the thigh, moving in like this, right? Rotating like this, right? And maybe bend it like this, right? Bend the lower leg like this. The lower leg is going to be about 2 heads with the foot, right? So let's see, 1, 2, and the foot is extended, so you're gonna go past that, right? All right, so now, arms, right, arms. We could block in now the arm, let's see, clavicles, maybe one arm up, so one arm is up, so I'm going to lift the clavicle. As the arm is raised, the clavicle will follow, right, like this. And then maybe arm behind the head, right? I want to see where the elbow is in relation to the head. Usually it's at the level of the top of the head, right? This arm instead, I can make it lower. I keep this, the clavicle horizontal, right, perpendicular to the sternum. And we're gonna block in this arm going back down like that. The length of the arm is the same as the height of the upper arm, is the same as the height of the pelvis. So I take this, block it here. Now notice that now in here, all these proportions now are easy to find because the segment of the body are not in foreshortening. This is foreshortening, this is not. But I want to start by degrees, right? First we do the easy stuff, and then maybe we add a little bit more complexity, right? Now I have the figure, right? I shall need to block in the thigh here, the lower leg, and the foot, right? Extended like that, right? So this is kind of a way, maybe this is too long, let me check. 1, 2, it shall be too long, so I'll make it shorter here, right? So I'm not really thinking about doing this, I'm not thinking about aesthetic when I do this, right? I'm thinking, you know, does it look good? Is the pose I want to find, right? So it's just a thinking process, right? Once this is done, this is correct, I like it, then we can invest more time in this pose, right? So let's see, blocking the rib cage here, right? Here and here, right? And then costal arch, pelvis. Now the pelvis is gonna be here, like this, right? I'm gonna cut the opening of the pelvis here, and then the iliac crest here in the back, or the top of the pelvis, right? So now here, I'm gonna leave this as a marshmallow, as volume, because it recalls, it approximates the volume of the hips, right? So now here, we're going to connect, the genitals are gonna be here, like this, right? So now we have the thigh, like this, and the gluteus is gonna be here. So now I can start adding volume. So gluteus medius here, right? Gluteus maximus. This is the thigh with the volume of the adductors, right here, like this, right? And now I can do the same thing on the other side of the leg. Now I'm blocking the change of volume, the peak of the quadricep up here. As I get down here, I have the volume of the vastus medialis, and here I have the calves, right, like this, right? Here we'd have the malleoli, right, and here I have the heel, and here I have the foot, like that, right? So this is the thigh now here. At the level of the genital here, at the level of the top of the genital, I have a tendon, a strong tendon, right? And that is where I see the adductor stemming out like that. From here, I will see the muscle of the back, right? I will see the hamstring, and here the gluteus, right? So all of this is going to be dark, right? So there's some compression, but the tibia is going to be here, right? From here now it could go down like this, right, with a line that from the anterior superior spine, right, I go down across the thigh with a line that divides the adductors from the quadricep. So still the tendon here at the level of the top of the genital, this is going to be the volume of the adductors, and this is going to be the sartorius, right? And this is the vastus laterale, the quadricep. When I get to the knee, which is above the joint, right? So I'm gonna sharpen up this. So this is very useful way of blocking the form. If you are in graphic novels, if you have an illustrator, but even if you want to block in a pose, studying a possible pose before you work from life, maybe you try to figure out in your head what you want the pose to be, right, in fine arts, and then you ask the model to please pose the way you think, right? So now here's the calves, like this, right? Shin, and the foot is gonna be here, so I'm gonna have now the the foot as a wedge here, right? Going this way. So let's go back to this, right? Now, from here, right, I'm gonna have blocking the head. Start from the head, we go down, right? We go down like that, right? So, direction, right? Direction of the gaze this way, right? The mouth, right? Eyes. Now blocking the neck, like that. Then from here, right, they set here like this. we're going to block in, this is the top of the rib cage, we're going to block in the trapezius, right? Down like this. Trapezius here is going to be slightly bumped up, right? And here is the upper arm with the peak of the tricep here like this, bicep. And we're going to have the pectoralis going up like this and the deltoid up here like this, right? This is the scapula poking out, right, from the profile of the figure, and the serratus is going to be here. So this here, now here, from behind the ear, right, the ear is going to be here like this, behind the jaw, right? We're going to block in the sternocleidomastoid here and here, right? Two sternocleidomastoid, 1 and 2. You will notice a continuity between the sternocleidomastoid and the sternum, and down to the linea alba, down to the navel, and down to the genitals like this, right? So we create this beautiful, look, this beautiful connection. Look, this here, 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 and then if you want, it continues with that, right? So now, blocking quickly the arm, right? And then we have now upper arm, forearm, upper arm, forearm. So now we're going to connect the rib cage with the pelvis. So here, coming down from the side of the rib cage, I'm going to have the external oblique here and here like this, right? Like that. See that? And here also, but I need to add a little bit more volume on the side here for the serratus and the latissimus, those, the lats, right? Now, at this point, I'm going to see the external oblique, and then from here, when I get to the end of the rib cage, I'm going to jump and go to the iliac crest. Now you see how this kind of widening, right, hourglass profile, which is typical of the female body, right? And this is the iliac crest, right? So below the iliac crest here, I have the gluteus medius. That is the gluteus maximus, right? And then below the anterior superior spine and above the pubic bone, I will have the root of the thigh, like this. So now, let's block in the abs here, here like this, right? Down here like this, right? I'm going to move the navel to the left a little bit. I mean, I can keep changing this, right? For example, this leg looks kind of too long, right? But for now, I'll leave it like this. The later, I'm going to intervene on that. I mean, this is a really a work in progress, right? And because I'm drawing now just basic volumes, you can see, without too much specific and organic detail, I can change this at any time, right? With minimal intervention. So this is now the sternal obliques, come down like this, right? And then now here, I would block in the breast, right? So the breast, this is the costal arch, right? Usually the breasts, medium-sized breasts, are going to be, the base of the breast is going to be slightly higher than the costal arch. So the costal arch will help you in positioning the breast. Now also, another thing you want to think about this is that this part here of the chest is flat, right? And this portion here turns, right? This is where the cartilage ribs are, and when they connect with the bone ribs, we have a change of angle. So the breast is going to be positioned about here, right, in between these two planes like this, right? I'm now going to look at two things. The position of the breast, right, in relation to the sternum, and I'll look how much space I have between this margin of the breast and the sternum, and how much space I have here, right, between the costal arch and the base of the breast, right? So now, therefore, because this is it passes between two planes like this breast is going to be on top of it. It's going to look at me directly like this. This instead, you're going to look already a little bit more on the side. So I'm going to block in, make sure that you have them aligned like this, right? It's going to be a little bit more like this, right? Like that. Now, This is now the mammary gland, the breast, right? One is here, one looking here, one is looking that way, right? Sense. So now we can block in the pectoralis here. The actually it's blocking the deltoid because the pectoralis will go under the deltoid, blocking the deltoid here, and then the deltoid will ride down about halfway the length of the upper arm, but it doesn't look like it because it tapers, right? Then the pectoralis will go under the deltoid like that, right? This is the pectoralis side. Pectoralis goes this way, like that. This is the pectoralis. The breast is over the pectoralis, right? So we're gonna see these really different volume overlapping each other. And the bicep is under the pectoralis. So tricep, we have this beautiful interconnection, right, between the various parts. So we have the bicep under the pectoralis under the deltoid, right? This is going to go here. This is going to be under the deltoid, and this is going to be over all of them, like that, right? So drawing perpendicular lines to the volume of the muscle helps you to, these are like lines of section, right? So imagine now, instead of going with the fibers, right, I'm going to go with a cross contour line like this, right? And that helps me to visualize the volumetric aspect of the forms of the body. So here I have now sartorius here, right? This is the adductor here, right? And here I have the depression. This depression here, like this, right? And here, just above the genital, this part in here, where I have other muscle, meaning the pectineus and iliopsoas, but, you know. And then now here, starting from the anterior superior spine, I would have a bump like this, right? And the muscle, that is the tensor fascia lata, and next to it, I'm going to have the sartorius. Now, in this area here, below the tensor fascia lata, actually, we need to block in first the iliotibial tract, like that. So we see how the quadricep is framed between iliotibial tract that stems from below the tensor fascia lata and the sartorius, like this, right? So we draw basically a tapered volume like this, right? Now, in between, actually starting from in between these two, right, between the TFL and the sartorius, I draw a dotted line just for convenience, right, which is the direction of the rectus femoris, right? And now I draw the rectus femoris here, right? And then the rectus femoris will taper and become now a tendon, goes to the top of the patella, and this is now rectus femoris. I can draw the section of this, right? Vastus medialis, right? And the vastus medialis will really get all the way to the top of the patella, really straight contact. The tendon is very short. And the vastus lateralis, instead, the tendon starts about here, right? And it will give me the change of profile here, right? Where the muscle becomes tendon. So therefore, we're going to have now, as you can see, vastus lateralis with a medium tendon, rectus femoris with a long thin tendon, vastus medialis with a very short tendon, like that. So, so now let's do another one. Let's do another figure. Right? We're gonna try to with the male figure now, right? Here. So male figure. Okay, so probably similarly reclining male figure, right? Sharpen the pencil. Okay, so now, male figure. So let's see. This time maybe I'm gonna start another pose, right? Maybe inspired by Michelangelo's sculpture Day and Night and Dawn and Dusk, but instead of making I'm gonna use a female pose and use it for a male figure, right? So once I have this, right, maybe even this, right, and this, right, like that, right, kind of a wave like this, right? So let's block in here, right, the rib cage here, rib cage. It's gonna be the rib cage on male is going to be the same width as the pelvis, right? So here, and the head here, right? I'm going to decide eventually where to put the head. But now I just need to visualize my figure, right? And I'll make sure they have the right proportion, the right connection, right? And then, but also a good sense of movement and dynamism. So the thing is this, that we need to consider all these things when we work on a pose, right? The structural anatomical correctness, but also they have to look good, right? So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks good. So now, unlike for the female figure, right, where I made the ribcage narrower, I want to make sure that these two are going to be the same width, right? Now, here maybe I block in the leg. I could have a leg down straight like this and one raised like this, right? Or maybe the opposite, maybe one raised here, right, and one straight down like that, right? You could do that, right? It looks a little bit more, I know, pleasant, right? So I'm gonna block in this leg here, right? And I'm thinking, because now I see this leg on the side, so I have to see the true length, I can now measure it. It should be 2 heads, right? Let's see if it's 2 heads. 1 and 2. All right, so it'll be shorter than that right here. And then now the lower leg also looks 2 heads. So I know this is 2 heads, and I put this in here, right? From basically from the knee here, I'm gonna block in a volume of 2 heads, like a truncated cone that ends with the heel, right? And then the foot goes down that way, right? Like that. This leg, I said, is behind, right? And is going to be about here and going out this way. For now, I just, maybe it's too long, right? So, but for now, I'm gonna leave it like this because I'm trying to capture a pose, right? Later, I'm going to review all of this, right? So now, this arm maybe is here like this, right? And we see how we can still imagine now, kind of quickly evaluate the length of the upper arm by simply pivoting it from here to here, right? So the arm, again, we've seen it's about the same length as the rib cage, right? Whether you measure it, you should measure from the back in here. This is the length of the arm from the top of the rib cage posteriorly to the bottom here is about the same measurement as the upper arm. So I take this, right? But pivoting it here like this, right, also helps to intuitively block in the measurement of the leg, right? So you can see, right, this, so you see the arm, right? And this can also help you a lot, right? In fact, it's one of the main purposes to read the pose of your model, right? When you look at your model, if you try to draw your model using visualizing the basic stereometric volumes, right, is a much more efficient and better way to capture the pose, right? The proportion, etc. of the pose, right? So this arm is here. Maybe we could put it here, right? Could put it like that, right? But see, these lines are very, very quick. They're very intuitive. They're kind of I'm just trying out stuff, right? Like this. So they don't have, when I'm saying they don't have to look pretty, they have to be structurally and proportionally sound. And of course, I had to try to convey, again, the sense of movement, the dynamism of the figure. All right, so now what we do, these lines, there's a lot of lines, right? I just need to throw them out and see what happens, to evaluate them once I see them, right? Meaning, when you try to visualize your idea, realize if your idea was good or not. And then, but first you have to visualize. Now, we clean it up, right? It's too many lines, and we need to be a little bit more precise. Now we make choices. Now we start making choices, right? This is a question, Edwin, right? So Edwin asking, I have a question, right? How do you determine how much the head of the humerus is hidden when the figure is in a three-quarter position? It's a good question, right? So that depends how the arm moves, right? So if let me draw you a quick sketch here, right? So we have now here a scene from above, right? The rib cage, right? So this is now the head of the humeri in a normal position are going to be positioned like this, right? This is the chest, right? Probably a bit more posterior. So I need to consider this. The head is here, like this, right? That's the nose, and this is the so the shoulder is at the level of the ears, right? I mean, kind of moves back a little bit, right? But from the front, right? I'm looking here. They don't look like they are so posterior. So what I need to keep in mind is that if I'm looking at figure 3/4 like this, right? The clavicles are here, right? So the clavicle basically could do this, here, like this, here, and here, like that. They move back quite a lot, right? So from here, the clavicle moves back and down like this, back and down like this, right? So when I'm looking for the view from the front, I don't see a difference. They look like on the same plane. But when I look at the figure from 3/4 view, right, like this, right? Imagine I'm here now, right? I see this, I see this, I see this. Now I see that the pectoral, only this little part of the pectoral is sticking out. So in this case in here, right, I have, let's say, the chest here like this, right? But there's another variable, which is I can move the shoulder, right? So in the model, right, in the model when I'm in the studio, I simply look at the silhouette here, how much I see of this. I look at this triangle, and that's going to be the deltoid moving behind. When I draw from the imagination, I need to consider also here the movement of the clavicle, right? If the arm comes forward, back and forward, and really think about the possibility of that joint, right? In this case in here, if I have, let's say I have the arm extended, instead of being here like this, I bring the arm forward like to reach for the leg, then what happens is my arm, this is the clavicle, right? My arm will move forward like this. So the clavicle is going to be here. That's the shoulder, right? Like that. And that's the arm, right? So now I have this arm, see that? Extended. The pectoralis would come forward, right? We can draw this if you want. The pectoralis now will be visible here, right? Whereas before the pectoralis was going back like this, right? So the pectoralis will be visible here, and then you have the arm like that. So in my opinion, it's a very useful way of evaluating how much the deltoid or the head of the humerus is behind the profile of the rib cage. Is just to look at how much you see here, right? In the model, how much of the deltoid you see here. But if you had to draw this from imagination, you had to consider this. So you might want to do a little top view in case your drawing becomes a little bit complicated. Top drawing like this, and then see where am I? What's my point of view? And then imagine this is your visual ray, let's say, right? And in this case in here, see that this visual ray cuts at the pectoralis, and this is what I see. past the pectoralis, that much. So having an idea of, see that here, like this, right? I see all of this, right? But I see only a little thin slice of that. I hope this helps, right? I hope that, let me know, Edwin, if it helps, right? So so now sharpen a little bit more, right? So now what we have here, head like this, right? The head could also be, I think in the Michelangelo work, the head is turned that way, like that, right? Turn that way, like that, right? Like that. We can do that, right? Like this, right? See, I draw the center line like this, right? And now the nose, the brow ridge, right? This kind of help me to really visualize, right, how the various segments, as I mentioned before, are oriented with each other. All right, so let's block in now. Maybe this arm is here, right? Comes out like this, right? Like that. See that? I kind of really see the possibilities, right? Now let's block in now a little bit more detail, right? We'll draw this a little bit more accurately, right? So now rib cage, right? Here, like this. And remember now, once I see the change of angle here between and the rib cage, right, and another volume here, I'm now, actually when I see this pass like this notch in here, that's the end of the rib cage, and this moves, this that moves toward the iliac crest is the external oblique. So now that's the pelvis, right? This is now the iliac spine. I know that the pelvis size is this because I measured that, and I had the leg in front, but I don't care. I'm gonna draw the pelvis as if the leg was transparent because I want to maintain control over the structural aspect of the segment. Now the pubic bone, see that way I can find out the pubic bone is the lower quarter here, right? This is the middle, right? This is the upper third. Then I cut the slice off of the pelvis, right? Now here, pubic bone goes up here like this, right? To the iliac spine. This iliac spine is back there behind, right? Like that, right? And now the genitals are gonna be here. I don't see them, but I know where they are. And I also, most of all, know, if I see these, I know where the joint is. So the joint, right, this is the base of the pelvis, like this, right? The joint is going to be, this is the pubic bone, right? Cut this bucket in segment like this, right? And this is the upper third, this is the center, this is the lower quarter, and the joint is going to be positioned here between the level of the pubic bone and the middle of the height of the pelvis behind the iliac spine. So here, that's the joint. So my leg now is going to go there, right? Makes sense? So I see now I can attach the leg properly to my figure. So I'm not going to guess it, right? Especially if I want to draw from imagination, I want to know how to articulate these parts, right? So this is the thing of stereometry is that, yeah, drawing the puppets is fine, but you have to know also the proportion of the puppet. It's a whole set of proportions that need to be respected. Only then you can use the stereometry accurately. If not, it's an easy way to block in the figure if you don't know it, but it doesn't guarantee that you can obtain proportional result, the accurate result, right, in your drawing. Now this is the sternum, right? As I mentioned earlier, the length of the sternum is a little bit bigger than the height of the costal arch. So the costal arch right here like this, right? Now here I would have coming down from, let me see if I can block it here like this more, right? Like that, right? Right, now just keep moving the head, right, to make it look more, I mean, more the way I like it, right? So this is here, that's the head like this, right? Turn the head like that, right? Even a little bit more. That's the brow ridge, right? That's the nose. Now, that's the neck, right? I want to think of the neck as a cylinder positioned over the top of the rib cage. Now, this is the trapezius, right? And maybe this arm here is a little bit higher, right? Because the arm doesn't move only, the head of the humerus moves this way, right? But also this way, right? Up and down, right? So let's say this is now a little bit higher, it goes up like this, right? So I lift the deltoid like this, right? I lift the head of the humerus like that, right? And now here's the head, the deltoid, here's the bicep. The deltoid here, right, will start from the really last segment of the clavicle and acromion like this, right? So here. And the pectoralis now is right next to it, but we need to leave a little bit of space in between the two. So now the pectoralis will bridge at this point, when the arm is abducted like that, the pectoralis will bridge the gap between the deltoid and the chest. So now, as I mentioned earlier with the female figure, the pectoralis goes under the deltoid. So here, like this, and then goes up to the chest. So this is the pectoralis, right? So, like for women, right, we want to check when the pectoralis, right, where the pectoralis is in relation to the costal arch, because there is a little bit of space in here, right, between the bottom of the pectoralis, right, and the costal arch. And this space can be bigger or smaller, depends, but it becomes, actually, let me see if I have an image here of the David, I have a photograph of the David I've been working on. Let me see. If not, see if I have an image of one of my models I work with, right? So, but this is a model I work with, is Vilidian, right? She is in my third book. So see how this is the pectoralis, and that here is the costal arch. See that the costal arch, this space in here between the two. Let's see if I have another visible. Yeah, see that triangle there, like that, right? That space there is this space in here between the end of the pectoralis and the costal arch, like that, right? So now we do, we have now the bicep, right, under the pectoralis. So 1, 2, 3, right? Now the bicep goes down like this toward the radius, right? This is the brachioradialis. And then we have the brachialis here. So we have the tricep, we have the tricep. So let's get into that later, right? I want to finish the rib cage, right? Okay, so is there a question? I don't see the question. I'm sorry, guys. Here. No, I don't see the question. Sorry. So anyway, let's try to look at the question later, right, and then answer. So now here, we have a the rib cage like this, right? So now, once you find the nipple, right, you can also, from the nipple, go back and then draw a line like this, right, like this. That is the margin of the serratus, right? Serratus. Here now I add to the volume of the serratus a volume here like this. The serratus, but it's also the volume of the lats, latissimus, right? So now the serratus is eventually going to do this, right? The digitation, the serratus like that, right? But use the nipple as reference because they are really lined up down like this, right? And then from here now, you see how we kind of widen up the changes profile, right? From this volume rib cage, now we make it a little bit more sculpted like this, right? And here's now is going to be the gluteus. We're going to get to that later. Now here, in continuation with, so we're going to have a continuity between the sternocleidomastoid that goes from behind the jaw, behind the ear, like this, right? Down to the top of the sternum, continues with the sternum, right? And then here, linea alba, like this, right? And down to the pubic bone. So the navel is going to be about here between rib cage and iliac crest, right? So then here we can block in the volume of the abs. Now, in this case, because I have a slightly bent figure like this, we're gonna have maybe a little bit of a passage in this volume here. You feel a folding here because of the rib cage, right? So this volume belongs to the rib cage, this volume belongs to the pelvis. So the two kind of bend like this, and in the middle I'm gonna have fold like this. That's the belly. And then maybe I can now block in the segment of the erectus abdominis like this, right? 1, 2, and 3, right? We're now gonna have a specific volume, more or less big, depending on the subject, right? But this is gonna be the six-pack. The six-pack starts slightly above the costal arch, and it goes under the deltoid, under the pectoralis, like this, the six-pack, right? And now, next to it here, I'm gonna have the external oblique, like this, right? External oblique, which might have some fibers visible. And now here, I'm going to have the gluteus medius, and back there, the gluteus maximus, like that, right? So now, here we can block in the other sternocleidomastoid down like this, right? So Edwin, let me know if the answer about the shoulder was clear, right? So here, like this. Now we have the trapezius, like this, right? And then the trapezius starts from the back, but comes also to the front, like this, right? And there's a continuity between this line of the trapezius and the line of the deltoid, right? As you can see now, the shoulder moves forward a little bit, right? Because of the pressure of this arm against that, right? And now I have the deltoid, right? The deltoid will move down here like this, right? Pay attention to the volume, right? The volume of the shoulder. See how big this is, right? That's the volume of the shoulder. The clavicle, see the clavicle and the humerus. The clavicle up, and then the humerus, the head of the humerus, right? So look at those. Start paying attention to those. Maybe you do a live drawing session, right? Live drawing session are really, really important to really understand the possible all the possible poses that the human body can perform, right? This is the arm, the upper arm like this, right? The bicep is here, the tricep is here, and now here we have the brachioradialis creating a volume like this, right? It goes over the forearm, and here is the hand, right? In this case, right, I have a shortening, right? Relatively strong shortening, so I cannot really use the measurement, right, I've been using so far, the typical measurement, because this is not in a flat position, it's coming toward me. So what I can do with this, right, so the upper arm in terms of a typical measurement here and here is 1 3/8, meaning 1/8 and 3/8 of a head. The forearm instead is 1 1/8, so it's a little bit shorter, but in this case, that will not apply. So what I can do, I can simply measure in the model, right, this, right, in the model, and then compare it with the head, for example, if it's visible. So I can say now, this measurement would be, in a control position, would be 1 1/8, but in here is more like 2/3. So now I know how to relate this to that. So I simply take this measurement here in the head and I put it here. Now, if the head is not possible, it's not visible, I'm going to use something else. I'm going to use the width of the rib cage. I'm going to use the sternum. I'm going to use anything that is visible. Makes sense, right? So, Mario, you have a question, right? I just got your latest book, which contains excellent exercises. Today's lesson is a great complement to the book. Yeah, in fact, that's why I am now doing a series of work like this, because I want to expand the videos, right, that I already prepared for the video. In fact, Mario, if you look at page 10 in the book, I'm talking about drawing the body, right? Page 10, at the end of the introduction, there is a link. There's a link with a password, And if you get into that link, you open that link, there are 10 or 9 or 10 exercises that explain how to perform some of the exercises. And little by little, I will add more and more exercises to that link. Probably this is one of them, right? So let me know if you knew it already or if you don't. In page 10 at the end of the introduction, there is a link, right? So so if you purchase the book, the latest book, Drawing the Body, you also have access to these 10 videos, and they probably actually absolutely I will add more and more, right? So now here, where were we? Okay, so it makes sense, right? So now this is going to be a measurement that is not going to correspond to the typical measurement because the figure is not on a straight position, but I can still extrapolate it and figure out how big this is, comparing it to, oh look, it's like kind of like the length of the sternum, right? All right, that's 7/8. I put this, I take this measurement here, put it here, right? But even if we're a little bit bigger or smaller, it would be the same thing. I can approximate that, right? Now here I have the thigh, and let's get to just try to figure out what happens with the thigh here, right? So I always draw this segment, right, as a basic cylinder, right, and then cut the end just to show that this is a solid. Right? This section shows that this is a three-dimensional volume much more easily, right? So now I could take out this, right? But not completely, because I still kind of needed to know, I'm gonna soften it up. I still need to know where the joint is, right? You probably see that's the line of the pubic bone. This is the line of the pelvis. This joint on the other side is gonna be behind this, behind the profile. It's gonna be here, right? Why do I want to know where that is? Because then from here I can now block in the leg, but mostly I can measure it, right? So the leg, more or less from here, right, is gonna be about 2 heads. So it's 1, 2. All right. So the knee is behind the joint. So we can say that the thigh is gonna be here. Now from here, I take 2 heads, put it here. Actually, that looks kind of good. A little shorter here. That's the foot, right? And now I have the leg proportioned with the rest, but also properly articulated, meaning I don't put the leg too high or too low. I know exactly where it's going to go, right? So the thing is this, do I need to draw the figure every time when I do this? No, not necessarily. This is the way you learn, right? And after you have practiced doing this sort of few times, you don't really need to be so thorough in measuring, right? We're doing this for didactic purposes, right? Later, you will, when you do this regularly, you will absorb all this information, and you will work in a much more intuitive way, right? All right, so now, and fast, right? Now here we can block in the knee. It's going to be about here, more or less, right? So at the top of the volume of the lower leg here, I'm going to have the head of the fibula, right? And this is now the lower leg. The lower leg, I can break it down in more segments, right? Down here, like this, just before the ankle bone, I'm going to have a widening, right? A widening of the ankle. Basically, I can break down the legs like this. Let me show you. This is actually I'm doing it here. This is the thigh, right? Like this, right? And this is the pelvis, right here, like this. When I get down to the end of the thigh here, I want to block in the patella just above the level of the knee joint. Below here, I have the box of the knee, right, which we're going to block in now here. The box of the knee, the axis of the box of the knee is it's an angle direction like this, opposite to the axis of the femur. So the axis of the thigh, right? Could be two different things. So axis of the thigh axis of the box of the knee, and axis of the lower leg, like that, right? So now the lower leg, I can block it in as, first I draw the length of the lower leg, right? And then with the foot and everything, then I break it down in segment. So once I know where the heel, the ankle joint is, I can look at how long this is and block in now the calf, evaluating how much space is the volume of the calf occupying in the lower leg. Let's say half, right? Below this oval, I'm gonna block in now an upside down truncated cone, and below that, I'm gonna block in the upright truncated cone for the malleoli, and then below that, the foot. So I have now oval, upside down truncated cone, upright truncated cone, and then the heel, etc. So here, what I have this volume of the calf now, right? This is now the tapering of the lower leg, because that's where this muscle that are chunky up here, they're big and voluminous, right? They'll become they will become thin below here, right? Because they become gradually thin because they are tendons, right? As we get here, we have this instead a change of profile, because here I have the malleoli, right? They move out here, malleoli here, and the Achilles tendon in the back, and the tendon of the extensor of the toes in front. So now that is going to be the geometry of the leg, right? Oval, upside down truncated cone, upright truncated cone, sphere, wedge, like that, right? Now here, what I have, I'm gonna have the volume of the hamstring like this, right? I'm gonna block them down here. Block them in this central part of the thigh, because that's where they develop the most, because then we're gonna have maybe the glutei here like this, the gluteus maximus here like this. This is the volume of the hamstring that comes from under the glutei, right? And then I have this lower portion, lower third or so, the hamstring separate. This is the bicep that goes to the head of the fibula, and that's the semitendinosus and membranosus. They go to the goose foot on the other side. Let's leave it alone for now, right? But I have here now a change of volume like this, right? And change of profile. This now get very thin and tendinous. This is gonna be the back of the leg, right? And now here I have the peak of the quadricep, and here I'm gonna have now, starting from the anterior superior spine, at the volume of the tensor fascia lata, like that. So peak of the quadricep, tensor fascia lata, vasto lateralis, and then also I might be able to see the iliotibial tract, like that, right, like this. So, so we have another male figure like this, right? So let's see now. We can draw the section, right? The section of the, sorry, this is a female. We have another male figure, right? So now let's draw now the section of the volume, the muscle, just to have an idea of the three-dimensionality. I think that drawing the section, like Leonardo did in his sketchbooks, is much more useful than drawing the fibers. They are both important, but for what we're looking for with what we're visualizing with this is how the form develops three-dimensionally. Makes sense? So I'm going to acquire an understanding of the form of these volumes that's going to be much more accurate, right? If I imagine now slicing the body, the form of the body like this, right? Like that, right? Like that, here, here, like this, right? So I want to show you quickly, and then I'll let you go. So what Mario was referring to is my third book, right? And in this third book, I have a number of exercises, right, where I explain the various volumes, right? The various structural characteristic of the body, and next to it, you can do the exercises, right? Possibly using tracing paper, so you don't do it once. You can, if you use tracing paper, put the sheet of tracing paper over here, you can perform the exercise as many times as you want, right? So we go from the stereometry, right? Basic stereometry, male and female, and also a more rounded stereometry, because I think it's much more useful. And then from there, we start moving. Once we acquire the understanding of the portion, etc., we start moving the puppet, right, and the figure, and we now create a variety of dynamic poses, you can see, right? And once we understand how to move the structure, the puppets, we can now move on to measuring, right? We can move on to adding muscle over these figures. See that? Now we have muscles here. Same thing, exercise for the muscle. Let me do this, right? And then from here, we're going to learn to identify the landmarks in the body. So this is how you look at your model and you see, okay, what is that bump? Oh, the iliac spine, posterior iliac spine. What is that line? What is that line? Oh, that's the scapula, makes sense. So it gets more and more complex, basically from the scaffolding. Now we move on to adding the superficial muscle, right, in a variety of poses, and then layering with a tracing paper, and then we start reading artwork, masterpieces, see how they've been resolved, and eventually some compositional aspects, right? And eventually we move on to the real figure, right? The real figure. So it's basically also is a segment dedicated to various technique, the most commonly used techniques in figure drawing that might be very useful for you, and also how to use clothing for narrative and aesthetic purposes. So it's basically a drawing course, right? It's all exercises, and you follow all the various exercises in levels, right? If there are different levels, and you learn by performing the exercises. So thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to have another live session in next month in March, right? Thank you so much. Bye bye. Pronti, no?